Hi, folks. How's everyone doing? Welcome to day 5 of Global Hack Week. How exciting! Let's see. Hello. We're gonna give it some time for people to join in. How's everyone doing? Having a good afternoon so far? It's almost Friday. I'm excited about that. I am doing well, yeah. What time zone are you in? Hi, Dead Nuggy. How's it going? Did I pronounce that right? Is it Nuggy or is it Noogie? Cairo. Oh, cool. Nuggy. Nice. Do you have experience in Git at all? That's perfect. We are going to be going through this as if you were setting up Git for the very first time. So that's perfect. It's going to be very hands-on and fun. Out of curiosity, what if so I do this thing with music where I listen to a very wide variety of different music. And I usually have phases where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of into this right now. Like I'm into recently I've been into like indie pop R&B. Actually for the past week I've been very much into classical music. So I've been going back and exploring um, like classic essentials of like Bach and oh no. My Spotify Wrapped. Maybe I'll pull it up during our break in this stream. Oh, cool. I'm assuming you do you understand the language? I listen to a lot of music whether I understand the language or not, just for a lot of Panic at the Disco. I feel that. Oh, cool. Yeah, you said that you're from Cairo, correct? Very nice. Would you all let's get started at hello, welcome in, whole Broadway phase. Oh, what song were you performing? Hello. Cool. I'll have to listen to that. I don't think I've heard it. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm originally from Auburn, Alabama, though. I grew up there. Which is, for those of y'all who aren't familiar, that's southern part of East America, or East United States, Southeast. Yes, I actually study computer engineering at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I think I do better with geography when I'm. So I always think it's funny because on Google Maps you can like drop the little pin. You can drop the person like anywhere, and I often like to drop myself in like geographical locations like that and scout it out. Um, and that's usually a good test to how well you know geography or your geography around a small place. Um, Ethnically, my family is from Gujarat, Ahmedabad. Searching on Google Maps. I have, but it's sometimes it's fun to just be a pin. All right, folks. We are going to get started here. So, formal introduction. For those of y'all who don't know me, I'm Alina. I'm a coach here at Major League Hacking. I do a lot of different things, though. I do study computer engineering. I'm really into robotics, and I do work with Robotic Automation Society for IEEE. So if y'all are ever in the area or interested, kind of do a little bit of that. And I like to travel and I do photography. I actually just had some photography published this year, which was really exciting. And yeah, I am kind of all over the place. Today, though, I'm going to be talking about Git. So let's get started. Who's ready? Okay, so a few things before we get started. I'm going to share this repo with y'all, which we are going to so it's right here. So if you go here, it's essentially a breakdown of what we're going to be talking about. And all of the links that we're going to need are on there. So that might be a good reference for y'all to have up. And I will also be going over that throughout these slides. And we'll share my screen in just a moment. Cool. All right. So this is Intro to Git, which is, I want this to be oh, is it? Interesting. Let's see why. Oh, I know why. It is private right now. Let me change visibility to public. Okay. Give me a sec. Okay, try now. Let me know if that works. Awesome. That's what we like to hear. Perfect. Yay. All right, so we're ready to go. Intro to Git. I'm Alina, and we are going to be walking through what Git is, how to set it up, and all that good stuff. Okay, this is going to be the general breakdown. On the left here, you see these numbers. These are associated with the slide numbers. So slides 1 and 2, which we're on. What is Git? We're going to talk about what Git is, what it's used for, and then we're going to talk about the difference between Git and GitHub, and more importantly, how they can be used together. And then we're actually going to go in and use Git Bash to set up GitHub repositories. We're going to talk about how we clone repositories. We're going to have some time to create something fun, and then we'll learn how to actually upload that to GitHub. All good? Okay, so what is Git? Git is essentially a version control system, actually a very popular one. It was originally created in 2005. For those of you who have heard the name Linus Torvalds, he's the creator of Linux, which is what a lot of people know him for. But he also created Git in 2005 as an easy to use, fast system for what we call nonlinear development. Essentially, nonlinear development is when you can look at a project and you can come in at any part in that project. Say that you're building a website with a group of people, but your task, the thing that you want to focus on, is maybe adding a login system to the web page, right? So this is essentially something like Git, a nonlinear development system, allows you to come in and say, hey, at this point, I'm going to implement this very small feature. I don't have to know about everything that the rest of the project does. I can focus on this one little piece that I care about. And then it allows you to share your changes and things like that. So this essentially is a great tool for collaborating, which can be done by branching, and we can talk more about that in a little bit. Does anyone here know what Git stands for? So Linus Torvalds, something I read was that he described this tool that when he gave it the name Git, he when he wrote the very first version, he said that it was supposed to be a stupid content tracker, and the name was very much dependent on your mood. So imagine being angry at Git. I could see the animated look on a programmer's face as they are frustrated with Git. Git actually stands for Global Information Tracker, which is pretty on par. Seems like you all want the link again. I'll throw it in here. Cool. Okay. Yeah, so essentially, Git is a popular version control system. It's decentralized, which means that you can have a remote server with all of your directories and version control. So on Git, Git is where you'll have all of your files and directories. And a lot of people often are confused between Git and GitHub. And I've heard a lot of people's think that it's one and the same. It is actually not. It's a very common misconception that I've heard from peers, and something that's not often explicitly stated. In fact, their functions are completely unique and different to one another. So while Git is a tool that is used to manage versions of files within directories like Git repositories, a Git repository is essentially where your files live, and GitHub is where you can, it's a server for where you can upload those repositories. So you don't necessarily need GitHub in order to use Git, but you cannot use GitHub without using Git, because GitHub is essentially a server, a cloud-based server for you to upload your Git repositories and share them with people. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Also, if there are any questions, just drop them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that throughout this presentation. Cool. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up Git. So at this link, you can download Git. If you go to the GitHub link that I put in here, you should also be able to follow the README. All of these links are in there. So essentially, you'll be brought to this screen right here. Let me share my screen. Percent, share screen. Okay, so this is where you're going to download Git. If you have a Windows system, Mac, or Linux, you just go in and essentially follow the setup here. If you do need any references for this, oh, actually you can't see my screen. This is what the page should look like. And you'll essentially be able to, let me go back to this. So you can go ahead and download Git, and it'll take you through a series of prompts, and you'll essentially, so for example, download. I already have Git installed on here, but essentially you would just walk through, you'd open up the .exe file and walk through the setup. Oh. Yeah, so if you want to know if you have Git installed or not, you can type in, let me put it in here. You can type in Git version. I'm not going to walk through the setup unless if someone wants me to walk through it formally. I will give everyone a few minutes. Who in here is still trying to install Git? Yep, so you can, if you're using a Windows system, you can look for Git bash. And if you have Git, then it should bring it up for you. Let me actually see if we can get this text to be bigger. Okay, 16. Apply that. So after you have Git installed, you'll come and open up your Git bash. Yes, bash is used in Linux. So something that Git bash allows you to do is essentially you're able to use Linux commands on Git bash. So we'll actually walk through some Git commands as well while we do this, because it goes very much hand in hand. You don't necessarily need the GUI version for this session. I'm just going to be using Git bash so that we're all able to work together. But if you have something that you prefer to work in and have it set up, then that can work fine. Could you explain what you mean by that? By I don't have the term saying master in my terminal? Oh, and the second thing? Let me add this to the stream. The second thing will be if you don't have a GitHub account, either make sure you create one, or if you do already have one, make sure you go ahead and log into your GitHub account, so that we're gonna have GitHub on one side, and Git Bash running on the other, and we'll work hand in hand there. Let's see, master. Oh, I see. See about typing in do you have... Okay, so what you're saying is that you're able to, so you have Git Bash opened, correct? Okay, so you're good for now. We're going to walk through how to actually set up, how to initialize your Git repository. Yeah, if you want to do so for those of y'all who do already have your Git Bash set up, if you want to, wherever you land, like whatever repository you're in, or directory you're in, go ahead and type in pwd. It'll show you, this is a Linux command that essentially shows you where you are. So you can see that I'm in C users 13347. And then if you use CD, you can change directories. That's what it stands for. So I think I'm going to go into my return projects directory. You do an ls, that will list what you have in a given directory. I'm actually going to make a directory here. We call it intro to Git, and then you can cd into intro to Git. Just kind of going ahead of steps. Is everyone ready to move forward? So that's essentially saying that, yep, I think I've linked it to the Git and GitHub cheat sheet. I've actually linked it to this, to the repository I have on GitHub. Assume CD works for local repositories. Yep, that's true. Okay, I'm gonna go back to stream here. Does anyone need any more time setting up Git or GitHub? Okay, I'm assuming that everyone's good there. Okay, so the next big thing that we're going to do you still need more time? Okay, we can take a few minutes. The next thing we're going to be talking about is going to be how we integrate Git with GitHub. So how do you access GitHub using Git? And we're going to use the Git Bash just to, at least I will be, and I encourage those of you who are new to using Git to follow along using Git Bash, just so that we're able to use Linux commands and things like that and follow there. Okay. So basically it'll be making sure we have access. So making sure that we are authenticating. Okay, awesome. Perfect. So we're going to make sure that we can authenticate our Git and GitHub to work together. And then we're going to learn how to clone a repository. We're going to create, and we're going to stage and share. Okay. So in order to configure access to our GitHub repositories, we're going to need to generate SSH keys. And so that's going to be our next step. So if you go back to the GitHub page, I seem to have lost it here. So let me pull it up. Yep, we're going to walk through how to make the repo available to us locally. And we will do that by cloning. But the first thing that we're going to do is, now that everyone has a GitHub account and we're on Git Bash, we're going to have GitHub and Git Bash running side by side, and then we're going to generate our SSH keys. So what you're going to need for this is this command. Let me pull up my Bash and GitHub documentation. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Yep. All right, folks, let me share my screen with y'all. Add this to stream. Okay, cool. All right, so the step that we're on right now is right here. We're going to be configuring access to our GitHub repositories. So we can use SSH keygen here. This is going to generate a set of keys for an SSH key for you to use. So when you run this command, you can pretty much accept all of the default fields. So let me actually run this on my end. Okay, and here you can put in your GitHub email. For me, that's, I can bring it over here. Essentially, it's going to ask you, whatever. Okay, it's going to ask you if you want to change the file. I suggest that we leave all of the fields as being default. I definitely do not recommend changing the file name where the key is stored. So just go ahead and press enter. And you can just accept all of the defaults there. When you get to enter a passphrase, I do suggest that you create a passphrase for your key for security purposes, for something important in the future if you are going to use this method. Just make sure that it's memorable to you, because you'll be asked to use this anytime you try to access any of your GitHub account resources using the git command line tool. Okay. Then So what this essentially did, this generated, the command that we just used generated a set of keys that we can use for our GitHub, right? To actually see what's in this file, this is a Linux command, cat. Cat is going to, it actually stands for concatenate, but it's going to show you the contents of something if you're looking for it. So for example, let me make a file, okay? Call it text.txt. Okay, hi there. Okay, let me save it. If I were to cat this file, you can see the contents. It shows up right here and it says, hi there, right? So that's essentially what cat is used for. So after our SSH key is generated, and I'm not going, obviously for security reasons, I'm not going to show what my SSH key is, but you can throw in this command right here to actually see what your SSH keys look like. And this will be useful for the next step that we do. So you'll make sure that you have your SSH key, concatenating. Let me know how that goes for y'all, if anyone needs help with that. And then we're going to move over to our GitHub page. So hopefully you have that open side by side. And on GitHub, you're going to go into your settings. So press your user logo, go to settings. And here you'll see all these options. The one that you need to go to is SSH and GPG keys. This is actually where you will create a new key. So it'll bring you to this page. You can name it, whatever makes sense to you. Intro to Git, whatever. And then right here where you have key, what you got in when you were concatenating, when you used the cat from the ID rsa.pub file, everything that you got back, you're going to take that value and you're going to put it into this key field right here, and then press add SSH key, and it will generate an SSH key in your GitHub account, and you should see it as an authentication key here. How's everyone doing? Are there any questions? Anyone lost or confused? Everyone good? All good. Yeah, take your time. Yeah, and if I am having a good day. I hope you are as well. Okay. So once you've added your SSH key and you see it in your authentication keys, that means that you've done everything well. Okay, awesome. Looks like y'all are getting to that step. So this is essentially where your authentication keys are going to live in GitHub. And if you are having any trouble, let me know and we can definitely look into what's going on. But this link that I have here, if you do ever in the future, if you're trying to set up SSH keys and are having any trouble, I find this to be a good resource. So, go check it out. After we've done that, so after we generated our SSH keys in Git Bash and added our authentication key to GitHub, right? That's step one. We are going to go back to Git Bash, and we're going to configure our GitHub user on Git Bash. So these series of steps are essentially so that you can use Git Bash to upload to GitHub and create that workflow to be easier than some of the other steps you'd have to do every time you wanted to interact with your GitHub. Okay. Is everyone ready to move forward? Who needs a little bit more time? Okay. So the next step is going to be running the following commands. So git config. We type in git config. Well, git config itself doesn't do anything, but we are going to use git config to configure our user. Here you can see all the different things that you can do with git config. So it's essentially going to configure your user, and that's what we're using it for. So our first command is going to be git config. This is a flag, global, and what global does is that it's going to make you a user globally, so not just in one like directory. It's going to globally give you your credentials. Okay, user.email. So then you're going to put in your GitHub username, email for GitHub. It happens to be, okay. And then git config global again, username. And this is going to be your GitHub username. Okay. And then you're going to config your user password. Now this, obviously, keep in mind that I'm obviously not going to type in my password for everyone to see, but what you are going to do, there are two things you can do here. You can type in your GitHub password, okay? Or you can supply your SSH keys into this field. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to put in our SSH keys as user.password. So this is where your SSH keys are going to go. Remember, we did a cat of the SSH keys that we created in the id_rsa.pub file. You're going to take those SSH keys and you're going to put them into the quotations there. And that will configure your password. Now, if you were to do a git config list, this would show you Yes, that's correct. The output of the id_rsa file should be pasted, not the file name itself. Now, if you do a git config list, that's going to show you if all of your fields were updated. So under user email, you'll see your email. Under username, you'll see your name, and under user password, you will see your keys. And obviously, I'm not going to show that here just because security reasons. But yeah, do know that if you ever do a git config list, it's going to show you the plain text of all of those fields. Yep, so what you're going to put into password is what you get back when you type in this command. So if you type this in, you'll get your SSH keys. and you'll type that into your password field. So once your git config list looks all good, to make it so that you don't have to re-sign into your GitHub account using Git every time. This is why we're doing these steps, is because it will have you as configured as a user, so you can pretty much use your GitHub without having to sign in every time that you want to interact with your GitHub. The next command that we're going to use is git config -- global credential helper store. So what this will do is it's going to store those values and keep you from having to re-sign in every time that you want to use GitHub. Yes. Shareable Nave 09. Yes, that's true. You need to paste the keys that you get back from the ID_RSA .pub file. So the contents of that file. Did you enter your password into quotations? So you open it with a quotation and you exit with a quotation. Do a Control-C. See if that gets you out of the script. Or Control-X. That worked. Jessa Mills, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Okay, cool. Now, can you do a git config -- list and make sure that your values, your fields are in there? Cool. So once you've stored your user information, and if all has gone well, perfect, you should now be able to go and clone the repository that I shared with y'all. And we're going to give it our own directory name. So it would be something like this. You're going to clone the repository. If you have not already, so you'll clone that and then you'll give it a name. In my case, I'm already in the intro to Git repository that I made, or directory that I made. So I'm going to leave it as this, and I'm going to clone that directory into this. And if everything has gone well, you'll see that it has been cloned. So if I do an ls here, I will see this intro to Git repository that I can cd into. Okay, and that essentially has this README file. Now, let's do an ls-a. You see this .git file right here? This is essentially telling us that this is a Git repository. That's how you know. So if you're ever not sure if you've initialized a Git repository, you can type in ls-a and make sure that it is a Git repository. Now let's go back here. You can tell that this directory is not a Git repository because it doesn't have the .git. Now, what if I initialized it as one? If I were to type in git init, I will initialize an empty Git repository. Okay, so do an ls-a, and you see that this is also a Git repository now. So once everyone has cloned that repository, essentially this is a public repository and you're able to clone it. Great. But you don't have access to add anything to this repository. But say that you wanted to be able to take what I have, add your own files, and make your own repository. What we're going to do that, you can use git remote remove origin. So we're essentially wanting to give this repository a new origin. So we're going to remove the origin that it currently has. We're going to go back to our GitHub page, and here you can create a new repository. So you see this button right here to create a new repository. I'm going to leave this private, and we'll say intro to Git. It's going to be 2.0 for me. Live demo. Make it private, and you'll create this repository. Okay, that was pretty simple. That essentially created our repository. So now that you have that, you're going to add origin using this new repository that you've created. So you're going to say git add origin, sorry, forgot the word remote, git remote add origin, and you're going to paste the new Git repository that you created. Okay, and then press enter. Okay. Mo the Techie, you're stuck on your local files. Can you describe that a little bit further, and I can see what might be going on? So I guess my first question is, have you been able to clone the repository that I have public? Directory that you're in is still local. It should be local still, I think. So were you able to create a new directory? And type in git clone with my directory. I think you're trying to say that, or I think what you might be asking might be that you have it cloned. Okay. Do a git ls-a, do an ls-a, and see if you see a .git file in your current directory. And if you see the .git directory or .git folder, then you have it initialized as a Git repository. Also, the dot in front of a file, the reason we use ls-a, this is a Linux thing, ls is going to list all of your files that are public to see. ls-a allows you to see files that are hidden, and generally files that are hidden start with a dot. So the .git file is a hidden file. So when we do an ls-a, it allows us to see that hidden file. Is anyone else running into issues? Two files. One is called get and the other called get config. Huh. Okay. Yeah, so when you clone the repo, I think that it would have created a folder within the current directory with the repo name. And it is okay, perfect. Okay. I'm glad that worked. Okay. Yep. And so you should be in the intro to Git folder, right? So we've cloned. So what we've done so far, we've cloned the directory. We've removed the current origin of that repository, and we are adding a new origin using the repository that we just created. That's our own directory, or that's our own repo, right? And we're going to use, you can use HTTPS or SSH, we've been using SSH, so we're going to use that. Go make yourself dinner. Thanks for joining. So yeah, okay, so we're going to add origin. So get remote, add origin. And then you're going to paste in your repository. Okay, you can see here that origin already exists for me because I already ran this command, but that should create your new origin. Okay. But once you've successfully created that, we are pretty much set. So you will be able to type in git push -u origin main. And if you see this, enumerating objects, you have switched to a new branch, main, then you are all set. So when Git initializes a new repository, the first branch that gets created is main. And that's essentially what you're seeing here. By pushing to origin main, you've created that first branch. Cool. How's everyone doing? Once you get to that step, you're good. Like, you have your environment set up and you're ready for development. So what we did so far, we've created a Git repository. We cloned a repository that was already existing, and we created a new origin for it with our new repository. So we are now ready to build on top of that existing project that we cloned, and that being the repository that I had public. We took that, and we now have a version of that in a new repository that we're going to build on top of. How do you get your origin of the repo? Okay, so it would be following these steps. Did you first remove the current origin after cloning the repository? So you would have first, we would need to remove the remote origin. Okay, good. And then you're going to add a new origin, which is going to be your created repository. So in GitHub, you would create your own repository. So you'll go to create repository and you'll create your own. For me, that was intro to Git. I called it 2.0. Um, and that created a new repository. And so you'll have the option to clone the SSH. Using SSH, be able to clone that repository, and you're going to do a git clone with that. Just copy the SSH value that they give you, and you'll be able to type in git clone with that copied information. And then you can, once that works, you can verify that everything went well. If all of those steps went well, then when you type in git push -u origin main, you'll see that what you had in that repository actually gets pushed up, and you'll see the changes show up on your new repository on GitHub. So yeah, for those of you who've made it to this step, our environment is pretty much ready to go, and we're ready for development now. I'm going to switch back to this. So yes, we've generated our SSH keys, we've authenticated with GitHub, and we've configured our GitHub to be used in our Git bash without pestering us for passwords and usernames every time that we want to interact with GitHub. Okay, done all of that. We've cloned a repository, a public one, and then we've created a new origin with that existing public repository. Your password, did you generate a passkey when you created your SSH keys? If you did, then it might be asking you for that password. Mm-hmm. Yep. Our next, yep, Mother Techie, you got it. Cool. Yeah, so our next step is going to be to create. Get creative. What do y'all want to make? You can make, you can upload whatever it is you want. You're going to create a file. Let's see, shall I? Type in, I like to use Nano. Y'all can use, I know there are people who love Vim, or seen people use Emacs. Were you able to, if I'm pronouncing your user properly, Sophie, were you able to get an output from this command? Leave that up. Yeah, wow, we have done a lot in the past hour. We are going to take a short break here in a little bit, take about a 5-minute break, but think about what kind of thing you'd like to make. Maybe it's a file, maybe it's a simple text file, maybe you want to create like a hello world in C, or a little script that helps you, I don't know, see good morning every time you open up your Git bash. Git config. Oh, it's after anything after. It should actually be a git config list. Is the command just? I'm going to create a very simple for when you try to clone, it asks you for a passphrase. Okay. So what that points me to, when you are asked for a passphrase when you're cloning it, your passphrase is probably what you put into. I would love some coffee. Your passphrase is what you would have put into the command when you were creating your SSH keys. So when you typed in SSH keygen, this command right here, you can try this step again if you need to. Also, all of the steps are on my GitHub right here as well. So if you want to have that pulled up, but essentially, it would have asked you for the passphrase that was generated or that you would have created when you were generating your SSH keys. So either you remember the password or you might have to go through and do those steps again. So I'm going to just create a basic text file. It's a text file. It's actually going to be a Python file, just to make it fun. Okay, so we will take a short 5-minute break. Go get yourself a coffee, get some water, get up and stretch, and we will come back in around 2:08. And if you want to start thinking about what you're going to create, do that. Okay, see you in a bit. Alrighty. So everyone get hydrated. Welcome back. Yay, Jessa. Cool. Do y'all know what you want to make? So I think before we went on our break, I created a file for Hello World on Python. So I guess it only makes sense to fill it out. Let's see. Okay. So basically writing Hello World in Python, you can make this be any... Oh, I guess I wasn't sharing my screen. Hold on. Oh, we'll have to do that one again. Well, I'm not sure what happened there, but something happened. We're gonna go back to, let's see, sharing my screen. Okay, y'all should be able to see that. And just because that, no, I'm filling the screen, yeah? Okay. Huh. Okay, add that to the stream. Okay. And then for some reason it knocked off the slides as well. So, okay, cool. So I realized I created this Hello World file and I wasn't sharing my screen. So going back to Linux commands, we can use rm -rf. I'm going to remove this hello world.py file. Okay. So it's no longer there. You can use touch to create files. So that is essentially going to create the file, just an empty file, and then you can open it up using Nano or whatever editor you like to use. Or you could have just typed in Nano and the file name, and it would have done both of those steps, creating and opening up the file for you. So there are multiple ways to do that. Okay, so the very, obviously it's a Hello World program, so it's going to be very basic, and it's in Python. So basic Hello World in Python. We're just going to print Hello World. What? Okay. I'm going to save that. In Nano, you can save a file by clicking Control S, and then you can X out of it by clicking Control X. Control S, Control X. Okay, and then to run this, because it's a Python file, just run Python hello world.py, and you can see that it prints out Hello World. So that was pretty basic. But what's curious about this is now that we've added a file, we can type in git status, and you will see that any files that you've added that weren't originally that are new, anything that's new or anything that you've changed. Yay! Um, Anything that you've changed will show up in red. So you have hello world.py that I just changed. I also dropped in a Python file that I'll run in just a second, but it's called fun.py. And so you see those changes. Now to add them to our, so this is where we are. Okay, so we just did git status. You can see all of the changes that you've made. Adding this file is going to get ready to stage it to commit. So when I say git add, I can either git add a specific file or a set of files. So in this case, git add, I could specify I want to add hello world.py, I want to add fun.py, or if I want to add both, I can just do a dot. If I want to add everything, if I type in dot, that is going to add everything. LF will be new working directory. If that's fine. Okay, so now you can see that these files have been added. And they're in this, what we call the staging phase. So the files have been added, and this is where you are ready to commit a file. So I can type in git commit. If I type in -m, that's essentially a flag that allows you to add in a message, adding files or whatever. Try to make this descriptive in real world, but you can then press enter here and that would commit those files. But before I do that, I'm going to do something. If I want to get rid of these, say, oh, I don't actually want to include fun.py in what I commit, I can go ahead and restore anything that has been staged. And that will restore everything, or I can choose a specific file. So I can say git restore staged fun.py. Okay, and now when I do a git status, I can see that fun.py has been unstaged. So it's not ready to be committed, right? So now if I go back and say git commit with a message, adding hello world file. Okay. So you can see that a file was changed and it added the hello world file. Okay. So now if I want to push this, because this is what my repository looks like currently on GitHub. It has my original first push, right? But it doesn't have anything after that. So to actually have this file that we've committed, pushed, and shared on GitHub, we're going to do a git push origin main, because main is the branch that we're working on and that's where we want this to go. Okay, so what a successful push looks like, again, is it's going to look something like this. Let's refresh this and see if we have the hello world.py file, and it looks like we do. Right? Cool. So you can actually, on GitHub, you can see your commit. So if you were to press this right here, you can see exactly what changed in that commit. So these were the files. In green is anything that is added, and in red is usually anything that has been deleted or removed. So you can see that these were the lines that I added. This was the commit, and you can see who committed it. And these are all of the commit histories. Cool. Now let's go back to our Git bash, right? So So let's look at what we have. Git status. I had this fun.py file. Now, if I want to run this, it prints out fun. This is actually something I found online a while back, and I thought it was kind of cool. So yeah. Say that I want to add this, but I want to create a new branch that I add this on. It does print out fun. Let's see. Okay. Say that we want to create a new branch. Actually, we can see that we're on branch main. Okay. You can check out a branch. Okay. So what this command did was it created and switched to a new branch. And yes, main and master are the same thing. Actually, GitHub now uses, the new convention is it now uses main as the directory that gets created. So main is going to be your primary branch. So essentially they serve as the same thing. Okay, so we've now switched to a new branch called fun. Okay, and this, on this branch, now that I'm on branch fun, this is the branch that I actually want to make this change on, right? So I'm going to say git add the fun.py, and let's see if it did. Yep, so you can see that fun.py has been staged. 230k channel points. I'm not sure what that means. But for fun.py, we've staged it. So now we're going to commit. I'm going to say first commit on fun branch. Fun.py. Actually, let's do something interesting. We've been doing git commit with this -m flag and something in quotations, but we can also just do a git commit, right? We can just do a git commit. It's going to pull up something like this that's going to ask you to put in a message. So first commit on fun branch, adding fun.py file. Okay. Okay, that's going to save. And now that that message has been added, it's going to do your push. So essentially, I personally just like using git commit with the M flag because I can just put in whatever message I have and not have to deal with like an external tool to actually add the message. So now you should see, after that has been committed, we're going to do, still on git bash, we're going to do a git push to fun. Git push. There you go. So you can see that we've pushed our commits to a new branch. Now you see you get this message right here. Fun had recent pushes less than a minute ago. So let's go look at fun. Okay. This is the fun branch. You can see that this commit is, this branch is one commit ahead of main, what this means is that there are some changes on here that are not merged into this main branch, right? So the point of creating branches is that you can test out segments of code that you're working on before you merge them onto your main branch. This is a good way to make sure that if there are any fires, if something goes wrong, that it doesn't get merged into your main branch until you're ready to say, hey, this is good and can be implemented on the whole system. For fun, this is something that I know is not going to break anything, so let's compare and pull request. It's able to be merged. Nothing breaks merging with main. Okay. So you can create a pull request here. If you are collaborating with people, generally you are going to have multiple people that approve a pull request. When people approve a pull request, you can then choose to merge it into your code base. For this, I'm the only one approving, so I'm going to go ahead and merge this pull request, confirm the merge, and okay. Now this entire branch is reflected onto our main. So you see that fun.py got merged and is now a part of main. Cool. So that was the basics. Those were the basics of, we've pretty much made it through. So, oh yeah, I forgot because this restarted. So we've successfully staged and shared files. We actually also got to create a new branch and merge our branch into main. So yeah, that was a lot of information and way to go. Thanks for going through this with me. And we've pretty much made it to the point that I wanted us to get to. To continue a Git intro like this, something that would be good to talk about in the future is we've gone over how to isolate work when we're creating branches and integrating some of those changes. Something to think about is how do you, when you're working with a group of people, when you're collaborating, what are some best practices for isolating code, for merging code, and integrating changes that multiple people are making in a given project. And Mo the Techie about recall, you're always welcome to go back to and reference the links on the Intro to Git page. I'm going to leave that public. And if y'all do have any questions about using Git or would like to see a continuation of this, so we've gotten to we've set up Git and we've got our GitHub and Git talking to each other. Now you don't have to use GitHub necessarily, right? Because going back to what we said, you need Git in order to use GitHub, but you don't need GitHub in order to use Git. You can use Git on things like GitLab, which is another cloud based server for Git files. You can use things like Bitbucket. But if you do want to see a continuation of using Git and GitHub, let me know what y'all would want to see a continuation of in the future if we continue this Intro to Git. But yeah, I hope you learned something. And if anything, I hope it was at least fun. So essentially what this builds up to is, this is a quote by Linus Torvalds. It's actually, he had a long quote. This is a segment of it. So what this all builds up to is that in the end, we're all here to have fun. So we might as well sit down, relax, and enjoy the ride. And I hope you all have gotten a chance to do a little bit of that today. I hope you've gotten a chance to learn something new and just come hang out. But yeah, thanks for joining. Okay, I will definitely find you. Yeah, any questions that anyone has? Thank you. I'm glad you had fun. I had a lot of fun. Thank you all for being awesome. Thank you all for following along and like for some great questions. This has been fun. Also, this is like I like to teach, and I do a little bit of like in-person teaching with things that I might know or whatever, even if it's like a small group of people. But this is actually my first time streaming something online that I'm teaching, so this is very special, and it's just been a lot of fun. Okay, thank you all. Have a good rest of Global Hack Week. Hope you got to more sessions. Oh, and also, if you didn't check in, make sure you checked into the workshop on MLH.io. Let me. This is the link. Well, the link says intro to Python, but it will take you to this. Awesome. Thank you all. I will see y'all later. Take care. See ya. Bye.